Hi everyone! From scenic places overgrown with vegetation to a town built with marbles, here are the 10 largest abandoned cities in the world. Hashima Island, Japan, the undersea coal mine. If you've seen the James Bond movie Skyfall, you should recognize this island. It was the setting for some of the film's scenes. Also known as Gunkanjima or Battleship Island, Hashima is in Nagasaki, Japan. The island deserves its local name because it's got the shape of a battleship. Its concrete apartment buildings were erected in 1887 to house the coal miners. By the 1950s, more than 5,000 workers were living in the area. When the mine closed in 1974, the miners abandoned the city, and it's been uninhabited ever since. Due to its location, unique architecture, and fascinating history, people started visiting Hashima in 2009, and it's presently a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Witnum Australia. Founded in 1946, Wittenoom was a prosperous town mining asbestos, a clothing and essential raw building material in the early 20th century. That's kind of the whole problem, the city that was overtaken by asbestos. But like the venom symbiote suit that wanted to bond with Spider-Man and overtake his body, the friable material could get into the lungs and digestive tract of residents and posed a great health risk. In 1944, a mine inspector declared the dust level too high. The inhabitants of Wittenoom regularly inhaled the dust and fiber from asbestos. However, by the late 1950s, the city housed about 20,000 people and was the largest in Pilbara, Western Australia. The declining demand for asbestos made the mine close down in 1966. The inhabitants moved away to look for work elsewhere. Then the Australian government officially closed the town in 2007 and removed it from all maps. By 2013, Wittenoom was closed to the public. This city is not a place to visit. Wittenoom is still a danger to visitors as asbestos dust and fibers lurk in the air and topsoil. Burj Albabas, Turkey. With rows of pointed towers and identical castles surrounded by woodland and rolling hills, this city resembles a Disney movie scene. But in reality, Burj Albabas is a $200 million housing development in northwestern Turkey with empty chateaus. Yes, you heard that right, $200 million, yet it's empty. Located between Istanbul and Ankara, the development has 732 identical buildings that sit like palaces waiting for their kings to occupy them. Sarat Property Group started Burj Albabas construction in 2014 to provide luxurious accommodations for foreign investors. Recession and high inflation impacted real estate, causing the firm to file for bankruptcy and stop building the villas in 2018. Burj Albabas houses are in mid-construction and might not be inhabited anytime soon. It's a shame this beautiful colony is being wasted, don't you think? And now for number 7, but first be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Akarmara, Abkhazia. Once a coal mining city with striking Soviet architecture, Akarmara had about 5,000 residents in the 1970s. The area is part of Varsheli, a town where about 40,000 people lived. But with the coal mining industry's unprofitability and the Soviet Union's dissolution, Akarmara's population dwindled and the mines closed. However, what shook Akarmara was the war that occurred in Abkhazia from 1992 to 1993. There's only one road in and out of this area, and it cuts through Varsheli. The Georgian forces besieged Varsheli for 413 days and effectively cut off Akarmara from the rest of Abkhazia. Although the people received aid from Russia, the event was very traumatic. Residents kept leaving Akarmara after the war until the population became a few hundred. Presently, the town is overgrown with trees and is full of tourists who don't live there but go for sightseeing. Would you like to visit this interesting and abandoned city? Let me know in the comments below. Katchchan, Russia. Deep in the Magadan region of distant Siberia, Gulag prisoners built this city around discovered coal mines in the 1930s. They constructed Katchchan and the highway leading into it. Most of them remained in the Soviet Union town as miners after their release in 1960. By 1986, Katchchan was thriving and had about 10,000 residents. However, the town is isolated from eastern and western Russia, and the closest city center is several days' drive. Unfortunately, the highway is remote and hazardous. Residents even named it the Road of Bones. Katchchan also has 10 months of winter and was not built with a recreational center. When the Soviet Union dissolved in 1991 and coal lost its value, mines laid off most of the workers. Subsequently, residents left the town to look for jobs elsewhere. In 1996, a mine accident killed 6 people. That was the last straw. People relocated quickly, choosing to abandon some items in the city. By 2007, Katchchan had 300 inhabitants, and the 2010 census recorded a 0 population. If you decide to visit this abandoned city, you would see books on coffee tables, posters on walls, and decrepit cars in old garages. Hutuan, China. In the east of Shanghai, China, lies an abandoned fishing village. It's a picturesque view of crumbling houses and vegetation that has grown to the roof of buildings. Plants grow on houses here and thrive. Hutuan is one of the 400 islands in the Shangji archipelago. Once housing more than 3,000 residents in the 1980s, the cliffside village has only a handful of inhabitants presently. People moved out in the 90s because the location was hard to access, food delivery was difficult, and there was education problems. Now, lush climbing plants have overtaken the buildings, and the remote village has become a tourist and photographer's hotspot. Hutuan has implemented some new measures to monetize its tourism boom. In 2017, an observation platform was inaugurated that offers an overview of the village. If you want to go there, you will only have to pay about $3. Also, if you want to walk around the mountain village, you will have to pay a fee of $8. New bed and breakfast accommodations have also appeared throughout the island, generating over $100,000 in revenue in 2017. I would definitely be very excited if I could go to visit this beautiful place. Besides, don't you think it looks very cozy? It's like a moss village. Don't forget to tell me in the comments below about your opinions of these amazing places. Pripyat, Ukraine. On the 26th of April, 1986, the reactor of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant blew. It left extreme toxic radiation in the nearby city of Pripyat, which led to the evacuation of nearly 50,000 residents. Pripyat was founded in 1970 and officially proclaimed in 1979 as a nuclear city by the Soviet Union. It was built to accommodate nuclear plant workers. Although residents abandoned it more than 30 years ago, the town had a hub of activities when it was inhabited. It had 13,000 apartments, factories, schools for about 5,000 children, a cinema, sports hall, swimming pool, stadium, cultural center, stores, and cafes. The town also planned to officially open a new Ferris wheel 5 days after the disaster's date to commemorate the May Day celebrations. Luckily for the residents, the government conducted a 2-day speedy evacuation after the reactor blew and built the city of Slavitych to replace Pripyat. Several films and music videos have used the Ukrainian city as their setting and background. It's also the location for numerous video games and has featured in various literature. There is even a famous mini-series produced by HBO and released in the United States in 2019, which revolves around this nuclear disaster. It has won awards for Outstanding Limited Series, Outstanding Directing, and Outstanding Writing, among others. Have you seen this famous miniseries? Tell me in the comments below. Bodie, California. How would a town that mines gold look? Would it have high-rise buildings and ladies wearing flashy jewelry? Will the residents be prosperous and become tycoons? Bodie is an example of how a town mining gold could end. It derived its name from W.S. Bodie, who discovered gold in hills north of Mono Lake. The city became popular in the 1800s as people were trying to cash in on the California gold rush. By 1977, the Standard Company had bought a mine in Bodie. Thousands of people moved to the town until the population peaked at about 10,000. Bodie raked in more than its worth in gold and silver too, about $35 million. The place had its share of troubles with mining accidents, rough winters, and diseases. It was also infamous for lawlessness due to its high crime rate. Unfortunately, the mining companies became bankrupt in 1882 and people abandoned Bodie in droves. In 1962, the ghost town with 200 abandoned buildings became a state historic park. Croco, Italy. Have you watched the films Quantum of Solace and The Passion of the Christ? One depicts James Bond trying to stop an organization from destroying a country's precious resources. The other enacts the last 12 hours in the life of Jesus of Nazareth. Although they have vastly different topics, these movies have one thing in common. They use the abandoned city of Croco as a setting for their stories. Located in Italy, the city sits at the top of a 400-meter-high cliff. Graves dating back to the 8th century have been discovered in Croco, but the town was officially founded in 540 AD by Greeks, who called it Monte d'Oro. By 1060 AD, ownership had passed on to Archbishop Arnaldo, Bishop of Tricarico, and the city's name appeared in a written document. The bishop called the medieval town Gratium. Croco grew to have the Norman Tower and 4 large plazas. Its population was an average of 1,500 in subsequent centuries and peaked at 2,500. But this town that overlooked the Mediterranean Sea had more than its share of woes. The Black Plague killed hundreds of its residents in 1656, and famine caused about 1,300 people to leave the city between 1892 and 1922. As if these disasters weren't enough, thieves and bandits raided the Italian town frequently. However, Croco's most significant problems were its earthquakes and landslides. From the 1600s to the early 1970s, landslides occasionally visited the hilly town and made the living conditions dangerous. The landslides occurred because underground sewage infrastructure endangered buildings' foundations. In 1963, the government evacuated the last 1,800 residents to a new town nearby. Now modern Croco is abandoned, overgrown with weeds, and fallen to ruins. However, most of the buildings remain intact. Croco is now a tourist site added to the watch list of the World Monument Fund in 2010. Festivals and concerts are held nearby to conserve the site. Ashgabat, Turkmenistan. What's your idea of utopia? Is it a city filled with all the infrastructure you need, or is it a beautiful town lined with buildings made from marble? Rising from the Karakum Desert in Central Asia, Ashgabat in Turkmenistan might seem like a utopia for people traveling across the desert, but its emptiness suggests something different. In 1948, an earthquake almost destroyed the entire city, and the Soviet Union built a new Ashgabat from scratch. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, the new president of Turkmenistan decided to usher in a golden era. He built the largest enclosed Ferris wheel with $90 million. He constructed a 600-foot Constitution monument, several golden statues of himself, telephone booths that are fit for royalty, the Monument of Neutrality, and a wedding palace that changes color from red to green to blue at night. However, what's fascinating about Ashgabat is its marble buildings. The city of 22 square kilometers has 543 marble buildings. It's no wonder that the town has broken records in the World Guinness Book of Records twice. It broke the record for the world's biggest covered Ferris wheel in 2012 and the record for having the highest concentration of marble buildings in 2013. No place has surpassed these records. Unfortunately, Turkmenistan is one of the least visited countries in the world with stringent visa requirements, and Ashgabat remains a total ghost town. Would you want to visit any of these towns? Which one did you think was the creepiest? Tell me in the comments below, and thanks for watching! Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and see you in the next video.